Hi, I'm Chap Bettis, author of The Disciple Making Parent, and this is my audio blog, where I read some of my blog posts in audio format for your convenience. In today's episode, we're going to be thinking about suggestions for creating structure in an unstructured week. Pastors, young mothers, and plenty of others face a common challenge. How do we create structure in an unstructured week? The more unstructured time you have, the more you need to manage yourself. As a pastor for 25 years and an author speaker now for 10 years, I've had to think about this quite a bit. As I talk with families, I'm burdened by the number of stay-at-home moms who have difficulty bringing structure to their weeks. Yes, I do think this topic is related to family discipleship. As a parent, we have multiple pressures and limited time. Not only that, our children will remember the atmosphere of our home. Psychologists tell us that the number one high school problem is stress from overscheduled children. We're packing in too much. In addition, younger children love routine and order. They don't naturally create it, but it brings security to their world. Routine, rhythm, and peace reflect the nature of God. So, although there are many ways to approach it, I have a weekly schedule form that has helped me for many years. You can find this if you go to the actual blog post that I'm reading now. There's a link there where you can download the weekly schedule form I use. I find myself explaining it to young pastors and young moms regularly. And I don't claim any moral imperative behind it. I'm not claiming you should do it this way, only that you could. It's worked for me for many years. And with some hesitancy, I want to pull back the curtain and get very practical with what I try and do in a week. Well, in that section, in that calendar, you'll see there are roles and goals, and there are time blocks. Sometimes I just fill in the time block section and I work off another weekly to-do list, but at other times I discipline myself to fill in my roles. What are my roles? And then how does that play out in time? In the first column, I'd write in the roles that God has currently called me to. And under those, I'd write tasks that I believe God was calling me to associated with each of those roles. I believe the idea of roles comes from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In it, Stephen Covey argues that none of us can handle more than 7 roles in life at any one time. For example, as a full-time pastor, my role or categories at one time were a child of God, family leader, preacher-teacher, discipler-counselor, leader administrator, and speaker-writer. That was when I was the lone pastor of a smaller church. My larger goals in each of those categories came from times of prayer and reflection. Well, it's beyond the scope of this sheet to think about whether I'm actually should be doing those things. That's another question. This timesheet is tactical, not strategic. Well, let me give you 4 ways that I use this schedule. I find it helpful in disciplining my mind and my thoughts. First, I use it as my real schedule when I'm out of control. So when I feel out of control and I don't know where my time is going, then it's very helpful to record what did I actually do. Without filling in the goals on the left side, I can see what my functional goals or my real goals are by how I actually spent my time. It also helps me see how long tasks really take or how much time perhaps I'm giving to leisure. So one way I use this schedule is just by looking at my real schedule when I'm out of control. Secondly, it's my real schedule when I'm seeking to be productive. So the most common way I use the schedule is similar to number 1, except now I'm actually working off a weekly or daily to-do list. I can record what I'm doing throughout the day. And this turns my unstructured day into a number of little segments. For example, I want to write every day. Well, I can see that I did that today between 8 and 9. Or perhaps there's some errands or emails to return. Well, I'll batch those and see if I can fit them in between 1 and 2:30. This batching helps me with interruptions from others or in my own head. Should I email someone? Well, no, I'm going to respond in my batched admin time later in the morning. Did I receive a text? Well, I'll wait until I take a 5-minute stretch break at the end of this hour. With large projects that feel discouraging, whacking at it a few hours every day helps motivate me. I know that with enough hours, that task is going to eventually get done. And in addition, when I look at tasks that I strongly dislike and I tend to procrastinate, I think to myself, okay, I can do that for 15 minutes, and then go do that for 15 minutes. Reviewing what I really did in a week can help me evaluate my functional goals with what I believe God is calling me to do. If I need to fit something else in, then when will I do it? What will it replace? As a type A person, I need to remind myself I only have limited resources. I may want to do a project God is not calling me to do right now. After all, what will working on it replace? So, a second way I use this schedule is my real schedule when I want to be productive. A third way I use it is my ideal schedule. This is even a more fundamental way to use this form, is to think about an idealized schedule. In other words, given my priorities, what are the big blocks in my schedule? When I study the life of Jesus, I get the sense that he accomplished the large tasks he had been given from the Father, and yet he also had time for interruptions. So putting those few big rocks in allowed me to know when I was going to do something. So I always had the right to change it, but I realized what I was doing. So for example, at one point as a pastor with young children, my sermon prep was on Tuesday morning, Thursday morning, and Friday morning. Monday night was family night or coffee date night. Friday morning was a donut date with one of my children. Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning might be for a discipleship breakfast. So in other words, it was my ideal schedule, and in the cool of the moment, I could ask myself questions like, when am I reading? When will I meet with the elders or men? When am I exercising? And when someone asked to get together, I knew what different time slots to offer them. In addition, if I chose to impose on something that already had a slot, in other words, I put something in for a coffee date time, then I could deliberately change it rather than being tossed by the wind. So a third way that was helpful was my ideal schedule. And finally, a fourth way, was my schedule for the next week. As I looked at the week ahead, and I could say, okay, what am I doing on these days? That way I had a plan going into the new week. When we study Jesus, we see that he completed the work the Father gave him to do. Paul was able to give a similar command to Archippus. See that you complete the ministry you've received in the Lord. It's found in Colossians 4:17. My heart aches for pastors and young moms whose lack of understanding of time management contributes to ineffectiveness. Could this be one reason we're experiencing increased anxiety and depression? God is at work. He's never hurried or harried. May our time and priority management reflect him as well. Well, thank you for listening to the Disciple Making Parent audio blog. Did you know we give away the audiobook of the Disciple Making Parent for free? We want to help you use your time as best you can, and we're on a mission to equip parents to pass the gospel to their children. So if you'll sign up for our weekly family discipleship email, we'll send you the audiobook of the Disciple Making Parent for free. Simply visit thedisciplemakingparent.com/free audiobook. That's thedisciplemakingparent.com/free audiobook. That's one word. Thanks for listening.